Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Soundiron Production Playground Podcast. My name is Craig Peters.
I'm Spencer Nunamaker.
And I'm Nathan Boler.
Today, so we're going to be talking about a few different things, songwriting, different aspects of song production, I guess. Some of the new things that we've been putting out recently, some of you probably have been hearing about Hyperion Strings Micro, which is our newest string library that we just came out with. If you've been following any of the VI Control forums, you've probably been seeing us, hyping it up a little bit and talking about it because we've been pretty excited about it. It's something that it's been in the works for a while, but we are finally able to release it. So you've probably been seeing some different content about that. Spencer, you were there during the recording of it. How was it when you were there actually working on it?
Yeah, I mean, it was super fun, very stressful, long days. We were recording for like 2 weeks nonstop, like every day. A lot of sheets tracking articulations we wanted to get, and it was a wild ride for sure.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of the clips that you guys were posting, and I remember I was kind of like, ooh, this is going to be something to look out for, especially with some of the I think there was like little clips of like violent trems and some shrieky little sort of psycho-esque staccatos and stuff like that. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, we'd usually get those at the end of the day, like after we got the core stuff, like sustains, whatever, then we'd have, some time left at the end and be like, okay, what's some crazy stuff we can come up with? What do we want to get?
Yeah. That's always stuff that's fun to use too. Just for if you were, want to scare your mom when she's trying to clean the house or something, just play some of those in the background.
Yeah, we got some, psycho-esque.
Wait until someone's taking a shower and just crank up your speakers and start playing them really loud.
Yeah, that's one way to go with it for sure. If you want to pick it up just for that reason.
I would. That would be fun. So the micro version, as some of you guys know, it's a very simple sort of introductory starter pack, which is what we've been calling it. Something that's good for people just trying to get into string writing or, that are new to orchestral composition or that sort of thing. It is limited in certain, round robins and stuff, but that's kind of the point. It's to sort of give you an idea of what is in store for the library. There will be an Elements, hoping it'll be coming out sometime, if not by the end of the year, sometime maybe, earlier into next year. The thing that is going to be in Elements that a lot of people are probably wanting in micro is the true legato. And, that's always something that gets a really realistic performance out of strings. So there will be a lot more in Elements. There will be a lot more, varied articulations and stuff like that. So for any of you guys who are, maybe on the back end of getting micro, the cool thing about it is that you can apply your purchase toward Elements or the full version. So that's
right. Yeah, the full purchase price of micro will just carry on. It's a full upgrade path, so it's really friendly to those people who want to get into it, at the lower end, because micro is great for laying in tracks. Like, yeah, it doesn't have the true legato that higher upgrades will have, but you can get away with a lot. It's really impressive. And one thing that sets this library apart is the strings were recorded with remarkable presence and detail in the sound. So it's probably the most shapeable string library I've used, where it's really easy to fit in with other libraries. It's super flexible, great finished sound.
Yeah, my favorite part of the Hyperion Micro is the space panel. Changing the positioning of the instruments is really helpful, just changing them in your ears. And we also added a lot of sound design elements to it, so you can apply reverbs and some pretty crazy effects.
Most definitely. And the demos we've been getting back are just like super stellar. Really, really happy with those.
Yeah, there's some really good ones. Well, enough about Hyperion. So all of us are, songwriters from totally different backgrounds.
Yes.
And that's one of the cool things I like about working with you guys is that like everyone has different musical backgrounds. Everyone kind of does things in their own way. And I thought it'd be cool to talk about sort of our musical backgrounds at first, kind of where we come from.
Yeah, get to know us a little.
So Spencer, you went to Berkeley. So how was it like? What made you want to go to Berkeley, and sort of what did you get out of the whole experience?
Yeah, it's Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. It's very like jazzy school, but I was pretty young when I signed up for Berklee. At first, I thought I was going to pursue a quote career in classical guitar performance, which. So, I started at a conservatory in Miami studying classical guitar and pretty quickly saw the horizon and was like, yeah, I'm never going to be this level where I'm just nonstop touring all the time. And I'm not sure that's what I would have wanted anyway. I started writing music while I was there just for fun. I just wanted to capture some ideas and share them with people. And a friend of mine said he had applied to Berklee and that I should too, just to see like if I would get in. And that's how I did. I did the initial online application probably back in 2008, I think, just to see if they would accept me, kind of as a point of pride. And I stayed up really late that night doing it. And the further and further I got, I was like, whoa, they're going to let me in. Well, I didn't know that, but
you're feeling confident.
At that point, I was like, "Oh man, I got this." So, I flew up to Boston, did a audition, and got in, and kind of wandered aimlessly through the first 2 years, I guess. Not sure which direction I wanted to go in, whether it was like traditional, like songwriting, or classical composition or sound design or even production or mastering, things like that. But I settled on film scoring, which is what I ended up getting my degree in, just because, it seemed to offer the most opportunity for writing any kind of music I wanted, and there seemed to be actual jobs. Now, I'm not sure I would recommend people go to music school these days, just like straight off the bat.
I wouldn't.
As kind of a sound investment, but yeah, you can definitely make it work. They're not really training you to get a job. They're training you to become an entrepreneur, basically.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't pick that up by the time they graduate, and so
yeah, I think a lot of people go to school with the thought that I'm going to get a degree and then I'm going to get a job being a composer, and that's not the case.
Yeah, there's not many jobs for composer. That's for sure. Especially, in the last decade, where we are now. It's kind of been Soundiron's mission is to democratize music making, make the tools available to everybody. And so, yeah, that's definitely happened. It was going to happen, basically, with technology. So it is very competitive these days, but I think, it's a good thing because we're only getting the best of the best.
Yeah, that's what's good is the playground has been leveled. So it really comes down to how hard you work, how hard you work on your craft, work on, meeting people in the industry who are like, and not necessarily just meeting them because you're trying to, use the dirty word of networking. It's like just, meeting people. I mean, just like life, just go out, meet people, have fun, work on your craft, try to get as good at it as you can, and just, keep putting stuff out there. Because a lot of people think just because you go to school that jobs are going to come knocking on your door. You're going to figure out really quickly that you need to keep knocking on people's doors twice as hard, twice as often.
For sure.
Because it gets even harder. And the thing is, that's why some people either drop out because halfway they realize that, or they graduate and then they're just kind of like, bummed, or they just take their knowledge and just get as much lemonade out of the lemon as they can. So
yeah, I mean, when I was in school, older professors would say things like, if you can become a successful working composer by the time you're 40, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Because, like any other art form, it just takes time to develop and master. Yeah, that's my background. Nathan, you also have a formal musical background, right?
Yeah, I went to Lee University, graduated from there in 2013, and I performed with a variety of ensembles, like a chorale and jazz. I also did some, like rock, the typical rock band, indie stuff. I've always had like a passion for songwriting of many types. One of my like key moments was watching the movie Avatar.
Yeah.
James Cameron and James Horner, and listening to that score and going, people make a living doing this. And
right. Yeah.
It was
you had that realization.
It was the coolest thing ever. And then I watched Glory and realized that James Horner had used his own music again for Avatar, which is pretty cool. I mean, can't blame the guy. But that was a big moment for me where I realized that I could write music for a living and work with music tools, and create a living for myself doing that.
That's awesome.
Nice. And Craig, what about you?
Mine is way opposite of you guys. I did not go to music school. My road to, I guess, where I'm at now, it really just started because I grew up listening to metal. Like when I was like 5 years old, I stumbled across Injustice for All, and it just changed my life for what little life I've already lived. And I just, grew up around a family that listened to a lot of 80s metal. And I was just like, man, this is so cool. But the thing is, I didn't really, like, from then on want to play guitar. It just kind of was something that I liked. I didn't even think about playing guitar. I liked the music. Time went on. I was into other stuff, other hobbies. I used to like art and stuff. But a friend of mine in high school was like, hey, I'm selling my guitar for $80. And I was just like, well, I've actually been kind of thinking it'd be cool. Well, I actually wanted to play drums. A lot of people probably don't know this. They're like, oh, you play guitar? You've always wanted to play guitar. No. I wanted to be a drummer, but I couldn't get a drum set. So I was like, whoa, $80 guitar. That'll get me doing something. Got that and just kind of fell in love with it.
Nice.
Always been self-taught, just kind of learning stuff from old REH guitar videos of like Al Di Meola and John Petrucci, Frank Gambale, all those kind of guys. Yeah. So it's just like, like I've just always sort of, I guess, kind of get extreme with things. When I get into it, I just go kind of head first.
Obsessive.
Yeah. It's funny because
the same way.
I feel like, you guys can relate, and a lot of people who I've met who are, invested in their instrument, like they're all a little bit borderline crazy.
Yeah.
And how they're just kind of like,
kind of have to be, huh?
You have to be. Like, I feel like I saw this it was a bodybuilding documentary about this guy. I can't remember his name. C.T. Fletcher, I think is what it was. And he was like, in order to be proficient in like how I am about bodybuilding, he's like, you have to be obsessed. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, damn, like that kind of carries over into everything. Like if you're not obsessed with it, you're really not going to go as far as you could if you weren't a little,
Absolutely. Like I've always thought, especially as I get older, that you're just going to be the best at things you like the most. The more you like it, the more you'll do it, the more passionately you'll throw yourself into it, and you'll end up better at it than other people if you care more, and you, like you said, you have that obsessive quality. I think you'll find yourself really excelling at whatever it is, as long as you put the work in.
But the thing is, when you, like you said, when you like it, you don't even think about it. Like when my mom used to be like, oh, you're practicing guitar for like 6 hours a day. I was just like, I was like, oh,
nice.
Sorry. But I mean, of course, over the years things change. Maybe like you don't I don't focus on guitar as much as I used to. Now it's more of like the other aspects of composition and stuff. That's why I'm always picking your brain, Spencer, about 4-part writing, because since you did go to school, you're a little bit more, knowledgeable about certain deeper aspects of like counterpoint and stuff. And there's actually a video that you're going to be putting out too for any of you guys listening who are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We've been putting out a lot of stuff with like composition videos or like how-tos, tips and tricks and stuff. And there's a really cool one, Spencer, I don't know if you want to talk about it, what you're working on.
Yeah. And, Craig and Nathan here have also been doing a ton of great content for our YouTube channel. I watch every single one,
Well, thank you.
The video I'm working on is specifically about taking a piano sketch to a finished large ensemble product. And pretty much everything in between. It's very ambitious, which is why I don't appreciate you bringing it up. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, now you have to do it. Now you have to finish it.
Yeah, it's like halfway there. With the strings, we recently recorded some brass too. It's another thing, like 2-week long at the studio. And we've just had a lot going on, so need to get back to it. But yeah, taking a piano sketch to finished product. I'm not recently out of school, so most of the things I quote know are just things I was taught in school that I've kind of internalized, and now I think about them differently, not so formally. So I just kind of explain my thought process and like shorthand way of thinking of things to get there.
Yeah, for me, it's always cool just to pick other people's brains as far as how they go about doing things, like kind of like what DAWs they use, or how do they get out of certain, like writer's block is it's an interesting topic because it's kind of like, does it exist? Is it just your mind playing tricks on you? Do you need to just put your instrument away, go watch TV or go to the gym or do something to get your mind off of it, and then do something to change your perspective?
That's the thing. Like that's usually what I do when I get stuck doing anything. I've just learned to step away and think about it, kind of let those ideas marinate in your brain while you go about daily life. And most of the time when you come back with fresh ears or eyes or whatever, you're doing, it'll be fresh. You'll have more ideas.
I think there are two things that really help with writer's block. One of them is deadlines.
Yeah.
Just like either setting deadlines for yourself where you have to finish it by a certain hour, a certain day, or having other people who are setting deadlines for you, whether that's a director or a producer or your boss. Deadlines are great to write in bold on your calendar and say, this has to get done today, no matter how I'm feeling about it. And then the other thing that kind of goes along with that is discipline. One of my favorite quotes basically says, I get inspired, or I only write when I'm inspired. Luckily, I get inspired every day at 9 a.m. And I just love that quote because it applies to my life so much. I used to only write when I had an idea or when I had something in my brain that I had to get down. And since pursuing music as a profession, it's much more a matter of fact of sitting down at the computer or at the keyboard and playing until you have something that you can work with. And so I don't get writer's block, and I tell people that a lot. And it's not a point of pride by any stretch. It's more of I am disciplined more than inspired.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
It's a very good point.
There's something to be said for preparation too. I find it helps to kind of have a structure in place to guide you and a goal to measure your progress against. So I might spend some time, if I had a big project, like some big orchestral score type thing I was commissioned to do, then I might spend the first day not even writing a single note. And it'd be a full day of just, okay, what are these points I need to hit, you know, these cues. How should it feel? Because when you set a goal like that, like, okay, right here it should feel this way, it gives you something to measure yourself against. Like, am I doing this? Is it feeling this way? Aside from just kind of winging it, which there's something to be said for that too. My whole process pretty much boils down to outlining a structure that I can, or a scaffolding that I can refer to and check myself on, but leaving myself lots of room for chaos and improvisation, and like curating the chaos, basically. You know,
I like that.
Sometimes I'll turn on a random music generator type thing or make something like that in Reactor or something, and just like listen, see if a little motif sticks out at me. And oftentimes some of my best ideas have come from doing stuff like that.
I think it's important to note as well that the art forms all kind of work together. They all coincide. So as you were saying, Spencer, like if you take a day and you listen to one of your favorite albums, or you watch a TV show, or you listen to a score that you haven't heard yet, or you're looking at visual art at a museum, those all kind of coincide to help you with your creation.
Totally. And especially like the last 3 or 4 years, I've kind of put music in my back pocket as I explore other interests like the visual arts. And one big thing I always hear is something about your visual library is something you have to draw on. And it's just, the basic idea is the more stuff you expose yourself to and bring into your brain when it's creation time, when you're sitting down, blank sheet of paper, you have more in your library, quote, to draw on. It's that same concept. And it's funny, there's so many parallels between the visual arts and music.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of crafts, when you really start to look at them, they're all sort of similar in their own way. Like you can get as in depth with it as you want, or you can just sort of have fun with it. Like art. Like I just like to scribble around. I'm not really, but it's fun. It kills the time. But then there's people who, like you, Spencer, who get way in depth with it and like really, start to understand the science behind colors and light and stuff like that, which I find really interesting.
And I could go on forever about all of those things.
I know. Just don't say a color name or this podcast is going to turn into 4
Did
hours.
you guys know about the origins of alizarin crimson? Like, let's talk about it.
Alizarin crimson?
Crimson, yes.
That's going to be the name of my next album. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with the whole deadlines thing, because for me, like personal experience, like I went on this journey of trying to work on a solo album. And it was sort of like, because I before this, I never wrote a whole song. I was just always like, yeah, I'll write a few things, kind of riff off other people. And I was like, oh, this is cool, work on a song, in a band context. And working on the solo thing was kind of a big challenge on myself to like not only write a whole song, but try to write a whole album, like do all the lyrics, the vocals, record everything, program everything. It was kind of like, okay, I'm just going to try and do it.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I did.
Nice, man. Congrats. I know
thanks.
That's really hard. Like personally myself, I've had a lot of trouble, with music finishing things. Like I'm much happier to fully flesh out like 30 seconds of orchestra or symphony stuff than to do like, an hour and a half of it.
Yeah, it's really daunting when when you're just sitting and then you think of the idea. Like sometimes people, they just think about it like, yeah, I want to make a movie. Okay. And then you start looking at like what it takes to make a movie, and you're just like, maybe I'll just make a short film or something.
Yeah.
Like you start to realize like there's so much that goes into it. And the thing about what Nathan was talking about, the deadlines thing, like that I can really agree to, because when it was like, okay, now I need to start, finishing and wrapping stuff up, like, or I need to track vocals this day or whatever. Like I would set it on a calendar. Okay, song 4, track the vocals. And then like the next day, then I would like edit the vocals. So I had to like, if not, I'll just put it off because I think about the process. Like, oh man, this is gonna take forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I don't set a deadline, it's probably not gonna get done because I'm just gonna think about it. And I think some people they analyze the process too much, and then they just don't do it. I think that's kind of a common problem that a lot of creators have. Whether it's anything, a lot of people they spend 8 hours on YouTube trying to learn how to do it versus just doing it or just trying it out. Like, I'm just going to figure out how my DAW works. Like, no, I'll just sit on the computer and I'm going to learn how to do this, which is important, but you have to learn and apply.
You're hitting me deep,
I think.
Craig. That is me, especially with art. Like, I will totally spend like 2 or 3 hours a day just watching tutorials or time lapses of people doing art. But if you ask me, how often do you actually like sit down and draw or paint? Not nearly as much as I should or would like to.
Sometimes watching other people do it can like take away your creativity to do it yourself, though. So that it feels like you did something.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, it's a false sense of success.
Right.
Here, all my craving has been satiated by visually watching someone else do it.
Pretty much.
That's why I like guys like Gary Vee who talk about the whole like don't watch me talk about it, because I think people watch motivational guys and they get all pumped up like, yeah, like I'm gonna go out and start a business, and then they get that sort of endorphin rush from just watching someone be all pumped up about something, and then it just kind of dies away. It's like they got their emotional pump, so to speak, and then they're just kind of they let it die off. But it really comes down to just sort of being a doer instead of just a watcher sort of thing. But at the same time, watching or listening, like I'm always curious at the idea of orchestral composition, and I'm always listening to scores, like film scores, video game scores. I do that more than I actually try to write orchestral scores. That's kind of my problem. That's why I was sort of talking about it, because there's so much that goes into it. I still think there's something to get out of being around something all the time, like either listening to it or watching it. I still think there's something to benefit from.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you have to kind of say like, okay, I'm just going to turn this off and do something now, because it's easy to just kind of get sort of caught up in that.
One of my favorite filmmakers on Instagram is his name's Jesse Driftwood, and he makes like Instagram stories for businesses, and he's just this Canadian filmmaker, and he's amazing. And I watched an Instagram live with him one time, and someone asked him, how do you have time to make these stories? Because you make these just like super high quality, cool edited stories. And he said, well, to be honest, the time that you spend consuming content, I spend making content. So I don't scroll Instagram. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like my mind was blown.
Call the burn unit on that guy.
You just got burned.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is me. What we're just describing.
You're convicted.
Yeah. I'm guilty.
You're
of it
getting
too.
saved today.
I'm guilty of it too. But what DAWs do you guys use? Because I know we all sort of have different workflows as far as what we use for the actual, getting sounds or programming for like the different demos and stuff or music that we write. What do you guys use as far as DAWs go?
I started my adventures in recording on Pro Tools 7, and then got Logic 8 and fell in love with Logic for MIDI purposes, and did the whole Logic 9, Logic X thing. And when I started working with Soundiron, I got onto Reaper.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to compose more with MIDI on Reaper. We spend most of our time actually with real audio, but I'm trying to learn the MIDI side of it now. So it's a mix, but typically it's either Logic X or Reaper.
Oh, interesting.
Nice. I use Bitwig, which is maybe not so well known. Like in school, they started us on Logic, I think.
Which version?
I don't know. I think they had the same version for like 10 years or something, didn't they?
Yeah, they had Logic Pro 9 for about 9
Yeah.
years,
So
and then they finally came
I
out
think
with
it was
X.
that. I haven't used it in a while because, you know, at Berkeley, they were all on Apple computers. And, you know, I liked that. And then when we started doing more film scoring stuff, we switched to Digital Performer, which has a lot of tools built in specifically for like writing music to picture, you know, much like other DAWs do now. I know Logic does and Cubase and all that. I'm sure even Reaper does. By the way, Reaper is great. We use it for editing at work. But I mean, man, for the price and what it can do, you just cannot beat it. But yeah, I gravitated towards Bitwig. I mean, yeah, that's what I was saying. I've used pretty much all of them at some point for like at least a year or a couple years.
What do you like about Bitwig more
Well,
than other DAWs you've used, or why you choose to use it more often?
like a few years ago, it was time for some upgrade. You know, I don't know what prompted it. Just like all my stuff was super janky and old. And so I started looking around at the options, and I heard about this new software that was coming out, and it was made by ex-Ableton employees. And I had used Ableton like before. I never really used it a lot, but I did kind of like the thought process that goes into how like you might construct a track with it, with like little clips. Like that was cool to me, even though I ended up, so Bitwig has the same thing, but I ended up never using it.
Like the chunks feature? Is
I
that
don't know what it
about?
is. You can define like certain, you know, bars will just loop. You know, it's like making music with loops that you make. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I never use it, but so, you know, and there was some intro price for Bitwig that was really tempting compared to all the other options. So I got that, and what I like most about Bitwig is how streamlined everything is, because, you know, coming from something like Digital Performer, which if you know it and are familiar with it, holy crap, is it daunting just to look at. I mean, all the stuff in it. Like, yeah, you can do a lot, but I was finding all that stuff just kept getting in the way of the creative process. So I was looking for something really, you know, just for me, something really streamlined and straightforward and simple, easy to use. And it had a lot of other nice features, like it has God, I don't know what it's even called, but it has a lot of built-in like modulation and synth rack type things that you find in Ableton, so you can do crazy sound design stuff for it. I think Ableton and Bitwig are probably the best platforms for just doing crazy sound design. I mean, it's nothing you can't do in any other DAW. It's just, it's right there. And I don't like thinking about it a lot, so.
Yeah, something to just allow you to get creative quickly, I think is always, you know, it's kind of like when it comes to DAWs, there's always this, you know, which DAW is better, and it doesn't matter. It's just like,
It's just your preference.
anything, you know. Yeah, I was watching Misha Mansour talk about this, and he was saying it's kind of like a language. Like, what language can you speak more fluently? You know, like maybe, you know, you use Cubase and you can speak really fluently in that, but then when it comes to Logic, you're like, I understand it, but I'm not as quick with it as maybe another DAW. So it's, you know, it just, whatever allows you to, you know, whatever program you use that is like an extension of you that can just allow you to get things done, like you said. So it doesn't really matter. And that's what I think is really cool. And, you know, not sitting on your computer for 9 hours looking at what DAW is the best. Like, just, you know, like for me, the reason I gravitated toward Cubase is because I was using Logic Pro 9 forever, and eventually they just weren't updating it anymore. And then they were coming out with Logic Pro X, and then I started watching people using Cubase. Well, The first or actually second studio I ever recorded in, the engineer was using Cubase, and he was just, I mean, he was a wizard when it came to Cubase. Not to say that there's anything like, oh, like something magical about Cubase. He was just really good with it. And I was just like, wow, like, you know, that seems really cool, because he was doing the slip editing stuff, which you can do in Reaper, and I think there's some other DAWs that do that too. And I thought that was really cool, and just like the way that you can use group tracks, VCA faders, and all this stuff in Cubase. I was just like everything about it in MIDI. I was just like, I think I really want to try Cubase out, because I was kind of over Logic. I didn't really want to make the jump to Logic Pro X. I kind of wanted to do something different. And nothing against Logic Pro X. Like, I think if I didn't use Cubase, that's probably what I would use. I just kind of wanted to sort of get away from Logic. But since I've been using Cubase, I love it. There's always so much stuff to learn. I kind of use it for what I need, but I really like the whole like aspects of like the macro feature, and how you can use it with like Cubase IC Pro for, you know, MIDI control, or just like big macro features as far as like getting stuff done quickly too, like batch exports and all that kind of stuff.
that stuff's always great. What do you guys think about, like, do you mostly compose using MIDI, you guys? Because that's where I'm weird. You know, I use...
oh yeah, you use waves, right? Like a lot of like audio waves?
Like, I'll use a virtual instrument to set it up and like get the sound, but then I'll usually like bounce it down to audio. So I'm just so comfortable at this point manipulating audio. Like, I started, you know, doing editing and stuff in Pro Tools, and like I was just doing so much with audio. It just always, I mean, it started to feel faster for me to just be like, man, you know, because pretty much that thing I was saying about the creative process and things getting in the way, like that kind of defines me. Like, I can't have anything getting in the way, or else it just throws me off. Like, you know, my last semester of school, way back when, you know, I remember working on these huge projects with like 200 tracks or something, and these giant, like, big templates we had to set up with like a slave computer and everything. And, you know, it'd be like 1 a.m. and this thing is due tomorrow, and then something would stop working, or there'd be some weird glitch, and I'd have to restart the computer, and then it would take like an hour to load everything into memory again. And I was like, yeah,
that'll get
it's just killing me. Like, I was in the zone. Screw this. So it actually kind of changed the direction I took with music. Like, I spent all this time getting my degree in film scoring, graduated, and then was immediately like, oh yeah, that's not really what I want to do, I guess. Like, I don't want people telling me what to write and what not to write. That's just my personality. You know, a lot of people shine in situations like that, and I just don't. But yeah, I felt anything that was getting in the way, screwing me up. So yeah, I'll bounce things down to audio a lot, based off of MIDI. But I guess you guys mostly use MIDI, right? I mean,
yeah, I think most of the time I use MIDI. When it comes to a lot of the composition videos or demos that I do for Soundiron, it's usually all MIDI. The only time that I think I ever bounce stuff, Nathan, I know he does the same thing too, like kind of, you know, like if I want to like manipulate a certain aspect of the audio or do like reversing, I'll do stuff like that. Or if I want to like have something sound really glitchy, if it's just like some big like grindy synth, I'll just let it play for like a bar, and then I'll just chop it up or something, like, you know, get that kind of like stuttered effect or something. So if I'm doing something like that, then yeah. But the thing about me is, if I want to change something later, then I have to go back to the MIDI, change the notes, or like change the notes, that sort of thing. So that's where sometimes I don't do that. I think that's good for mixing. If you don't want to get in that whole like analysis paralysis thing of like, okay, like I got this guitar tone, it sounds great. And then later on you're like, I hate this guitar tone, I want to change it. And then you just keep doing that, like, versus just like take your DI with the, you know, with the tone, bounce it, make that work, or really spend the time to get it to sound good at the source. That's always good, because sometimes you need something that just makes it to where you can't change it anymore, or else you'll never finish it.
Totally.
And one of the easiest ways to start with a great source is Soundiron Instruments.
Yeah, Soundiron Instruments. On sale now.
Soundiron.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like just as a sound designer, working for Soundiron is just so fun because we have so much great source to work with. It's like, oh, I need to make a boom or something, or some crazy like electrical effect. I'll ask Mike and he'll, oh yeah, we've got like source for that over here. It's like, man, I have never asked them like if they had source for something, and the answer was no, basically. And it's all super high fidelity. It's just a good time.
Sampling life.
That's what I do with Spencer and Glitch Hero.
Yeah, I know, man. Glitch Hero is like, I think that's probably the library I tend to use most whenever I'm working on projects. I always find myself like I want some big, heavy, just impact sounds. Okay, like I'll use Shutter, because there's always these like, these big. Like I was telling you the other day, I was like, man, like this thing is crushing my mix bus because these samples are just like these juggernaut sounds.
Oh, well, thanks, man.
Well, my mix bus does not thank you.
Yeah, so. like I said, I designed them to hurt.
Yeah. Every time like the sound starts playing my mix bus, I hear it go, ow.
Yeah, making all those sounds was a long process, but every project was super fun. It's like a compendium of all the stuff I had produced under the Juno VHS name. Like the first one I think was Drip, which was I was living in Texas at the time, and my wife was super into just randomly going to Goodwill and seeing what we would find. And they had all these really obscure records there. I was very much into synths and all that analog hype at the time. This was probably like 2012 or whatever. And I had just gotten some really crazy expensive synth that my daughter would later throw juice all over and ruin. Yeah. But I got Drip out of it. So I found some records of like locally recorded children's Sunday school sing-alongs, for example. Yes. Like this was not like, this may have been one of only a few copies of this thing ever made. It was just like some really old church that had closed down like a few miles away. But it had some really crazy sounds on it. So I started experimenting with feeding a live record, like playing the record through the synth and manipulating it with all these crazy modulators and filters and things like, distortion, whatever. And the sound was super drippy. That was like the only way I could describe it. I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have like a glitchy percussion library that was just very like soft and like wet sounding. I don't know. I always liked stuff like that. Like I would listen to music, like glitchy music like Ahmet Sub or Floex. Like these guys are totally worth checking out. And they had a lot of these.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of those.
Floex, I think that was the guy who scored that Machinarium game, which is really good. But they use all these like recorded sounds, like glass and whatever, and I just think of it as like ear candy. It's just very stimulating, to your ears. And I like that. And recording Drip just turned into recording all the other ones, and then we smashed them together in a giant compendium. Yeah, but nice. Thanks, man. It was super fun to make all that stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Do you guys do much sound design? Or
no, not really. It's something I've been wanting to do more of. I think it's definitely fun to take a source and just manipulate it. I haven't really done that as much as far as the music that I make. A little bit more like straight band with like sample sounds on top of it. Not really. But there's like guys like Mick Gordon, who I'd been watching a lot recently.
Yeah, dude's amazing.
And it's like where he's talking about taking a sine wave and then like throwing it through all these crazy pedals and effects chains and stuff, and just the sounds that you get from something as pure as a sine wave. I'm just like, man, like makes you want to just kind of go crazy with that.
Yeah, see what you can get, kind of thing. Super fun. And that's the other thing with, I love about sound design is, and my style of sound design is really not geared towards production, because it's just kind of that curated chaos philosophy again, where I'll just, set up some crazy LFOs modulating randomly different, like 1,000 different parameters, and let it record for like an hour, and then just go through it and pick out the coolest sounds and then manipulate them further. And it's always stuff I never would have thought of on my own. And it's like, I like writing music that way too. Like back to the audio, like when you use stuff like that, it just has built in, it's free character is what I think of. Like when we do ensemble stuff and we record expressions, with like natural swells and stuff, I love that stuff. It's the best. Because it has all that free character in it. And when you design things around that, it just, when every element has something like that, it just tends to shine through and just feel really rich and good. Like even like visual art, when you're sketching, just start making blobs, see what you can do with those. Like, oh, what does that look like? I don't know. Let's roll in that direction. It's really gratifying to come up with something out of nothing like that, and it's usually good stuff you never would have thought of on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan,
do you do sound design?
Yeah, I try to make like a small contact instrument that's original for each project that I do. And sometimes it's one of the main sounds, and other times it's just kind of a background instrument. But the last one I made a guitar organ instrument, and it was like basically using my Electro-Harmonix Pog with some delay and things like that, and just triggered chords and notes. And it was like, a non-scripted, very simple contact instrument, but it had a very unique sound to it. Just like Spencer was saying, it's captured character. And it just adds a lot of like human element to it.
Totally. That's awesome.
That's cool. All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps up this conversation for today. It's definitely fun talking with you guys about this stuff and picking your brains. I definitely learned some stuff even more, even though I talk to you guys all the time. And also, if you do enjoy these podcasts, please make sure to spread the word. Tell your friends. If you find us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, make sure to like us, rate us, give us a review, and let us know what you guys think. So until next time, I want to say thanks again for listening, and we will see you soon.